Hello, welcome to a new tutorial presented by the SH House B. In this tutorial, we are going to see vasculature of the head. So, to visualize the vasculature of the head, we are going to add up arterial supply. So, the first point to note on the vasculature of the head is to come at this position. So, let's turn and see. You need to know that vasculature of the body starts at the level of the heart. The level of the heart, if I remove this muscle here, this bone here, so I hide it. So I've hide the sternum, so you can see the heart quite clearly. So this is the heart in front of us here. This position, you see the heart. Now we say that at this portion, the heart, this portion here are going to be the pulmonary vessels, and this portion here is going to be the ascending aorta. The ascending aorta is going to form the arc of the aorta at this portion here. The arc of the aorta is going to divide into these three major arteries. So we are going to have this artery called the brachiocephalic trunk. And realize very well that they are white here because they are elastic since of the high pressure of the heart. So here we have the brachiocephalic trunk. Here we have the common carotid artery. Here we have the subclavian artery. Now the thing you need to note is that which subclavian artery, is it the right or the left? So when you come here, you visualize the body. Now let's say when you visualize this body, you see that upon visualizing somebody who is face to you, that person left side will be on this portion and that person right side will be on this portion. So you are not taking with respect to your left or to your right, you are taking with respect to the left or the right of the person you are visualizing the body. So this is the left side of the person body and this is the right side of the person body. So it implies that this artery here, which is the common carotid artery, is the left common carotid artery, and this one here, which is going to the upper limb, is the left subclavian artery. This one, we don't see a right nor a left brachiocephalic trunk because there is no right nor left brachiocephalic. There are not two brachiocephalic trunks. There's only one. Now, coming up here, we see that the brachiocephalic trunk is going to split into two. It's going to split into a subclavian artery and a common carotid artery. And all of them are located on the right side. So this is the right subclavian artery and the right common carotid artery. But we are going to be involved only with the common carotid artery. So we have the two common carotid artery. We realize that we need to know again that the common carotid artery in the head, there's another very important artery which is used, which is called the vertebral arch, as you can see here. The vertebral artery passes through all the foraminers. So if you come closer, you see that the vertebral artery passes through the transverse foramen of the cervical vertebrae, except for C7. So it passes except for C7 as such and goes up to this portion, to the head. So upon doing the dissection of the head, as we're going to see in the later portion, we call cerebellum. So these two main arteries are the ones which are supplying the head. We have the common carotid artery and we have the vertebral artery. So it can be right or left. So now let's do the study. So upon increasing the arterial supply, so we see that the common carotid artery is going to come here, and at the level of the third cervical vertebrae is going to divide into two portions. We have at the level of the hyoid bone. The hyoid bone comprise or is between the third cervical vertebrae and fourth cervical vertebrae. So at the level of third cervical vertebrae or anteriorly the hyoid bone, you are going to have a carotid sinus here. The carotid sinus is the point which show the division of the common carotid artery into two. The posterior one, which is going to enter into the internal into the carotid canal, is the internal carotid artery, and the anterior one is the external, which is much more superficial, is the external carotid artery. And this carotid passes up in the carotid sheath, but at the level of C3, the carotid sheath stops, and we have the internal and the external carotid artery. So now we are going to first visualize the vasculature, arterial vasculature of the superficial portion before we see in the deep portion. So let's increase the number of arteries. So now the next thing to visualize is that we have the this portion here. We have the external carotid artery. The external carotid artery is going to split to give you this first one here. So you have this first artery which goes down here, and this first artery which goes down here is called the superior thyroid artery. So this artery here is called the superior thyroid artery. So the next artery which is here is a fascial artery. So this is the next artery here, and the external carotid artery goes up as such. So let's increase again to visualize much more structures. Here you can see the artery here, we can see other artery coming from this portion. So let's visualize very well to find the artery which will come at that position. So you can see that at this level is the costocervical trunk. So we have the subclavian artery, the first part of the subclavian artery at this portion here. The first part of the subclavian artery give the vertebral artery. This first artery here is a vertebral artery. Now this vertebral artery is the one which is involved in the circle of release, which I'm going to see in the head. The second portion here is called the costo. It's not the ribs, it's the second portion here. This one here is a costovertebral trunk. This is a costal trunk, costocervical trunk instead. So we have the second one, which is costocervical trunk, and the last one, which is going to be the thyrocervical trunk. So here instead is the thyrocervical trunk, and this last one here, if you visualize closely, you see that here is a internal carotid from the brachiocephalic trunk. At this portion here we have the vertebral artery. At this portion here we have the thyrocervical trunk. So the name here comes thyrocervical trunk. At this portion here, the next one here, this one here is the costocervical trunk. As you can see from here, we have the costocervical trunk. Now from the name we see that the costocervical trunk is going to supply the cervix. When we say cervical, is the neck. It's going to supply the neck. So we realize that the common carotid artery has no division. See, if you see very well, the common carotid artery, it goes into the neck, but it has no division and no artery which are going to enter into the neck from the common carotid artery, because it includes the carotid sheath, which is a connective tissue, and enclosing it and protect it very well. So that's why the common carotid artery does not give any artery. So what are the structures which are going to supply the neck at this time around? It's going to be the costocervical trunk, because it's going to give its branch up here. So this branch up here is going to be the deep cervical artery, which is going to be given. So we have the deep cervical artery here. This other branch here is going to be the ascending cervical artery. So ascending cervical artery arises from the thyrocervical trunk. So the two things, these are the deep cervical artery coming from the costocervical trunk, and we have the ascending cervical artery coming from the thyrocervical trunk. All of them are going to supply the neck. And anteriorly here, we can see that the superior thyroid arch is going to give some branches to the neck, and we have also this portion here. This portion is going to be superior thyroid artery all around here, and this one here is going to be the superior laryngeal artery. It's going to give one branch, superior laryngeal artery, and it's going to continue as the superior thyroid artery below. Now, if there's a superior thyroid artery, it implies that there must exist a superior and inferior thyroid artery, and the inferior thyroid artery comes from the trunk, which is called the thyrocervical trunk, and the thyrocervical trunk is located here. So we have the thyrocervical trunk, which is going to give this inferior thyroid artery here. So if you come closer, you see that thyrocervical trunk is going to give the inferior thyroid artery. So let's see the name of this. So we have the ascending cervical, which is given here. We have here again, which is the inferior thyroid artery here. So now the next part of the thyrocervical trunk which is given is this one here, and this one is called the transverse cervical artery. So you have the ascending cervical artery which is given. It also gives the transverse cervical artery. Now the thyrocervical trunk also gives this portion which is not involved with the neck, but is instead involved with the upper limb. That's the suprascapular artery. So we can see again the costocervical artery has given this, and also give one posterior portion here. So costocervical artery gives here the ascending cervical artery and gives one posterior portion, the supreme intercostal artery. So now let's come again. We see that again on the anterior portion of the thyroid, or of the first portion of the subclavian, there is also another artery which is coming down here, and this is the internal thoracic artery, and the internal thoracic artery is involved instead with the thorax. So now these are the main arteries which are coming from the subclavian artery and also involved in the neck. So let's come back to the external carotid artery. Now the external carotid artery, you see that external carotid artery is going to form an anterior branch here, the fascial artery, and another artery. This artery here, posterior here, is going to be the occipital artery. So here the name, we see occipital artery. Here is going to give the superficial temporal artery, and here is going to be the maxillary artery. So these are the main branches of the different arteries which are involved with the external carotid artery. Now the external carotid artery gives also another branch internally. So we have an internal branch that must be given. This branch here is not given a name. So we have these first arteries here. So now let's add up the number of arterial supply and visualize. So we see that here there is the fascial artery. There's supposed to be another artery which enters inside the mouth, and that's the lingual artery. In order to memorize this artery, you must make sure that you have to take one artery in front and one artery behind in a series of 4 times. So when you want to cram all the arteries, or when you want to memorize all the arteries that are coming out from the external carotid artery, you must first start with an anterior branch. That anterior branch, which is the most inferior, is the superior thyroid artery. The posterior branch is going to be the posterior branch, which corresponds to that, is going to be the ascending pharyngeal. We have the next one again. An anterior branch is going to be the lingual artery. The posterior branch, which corresponds to the lingual artery, is the occipital artery. We have the next one again, which corresponds to anterior branch, which corresponds to the fascial artery. The posterior branch again, which come after it, will be the posterior auricular. Next, we have the anterior branch. The anterior branch which comes will be the maxillary artery. Then the posterior branch which comes the superficial temporal. So that's a way to memorize the different arteries come from the external carotid artery. So here you can see here that this artery here, so if you visualize closely, you see that this artery here is the posterior auricular. This artery here, which goes to the occipital part, is occipital artery. So now visualizing here, we see that it's going to be the maxillary artery. Here is the internal carotid artery which enters. Now the superficial temporal artery, when it comes above here, you see that the fascial artery starts below here, and it has to supply all the face. So the fascial artery only start below here and has to supply all the face. So it's very difficult for the fascial artery to supply all the face by itself. That's why there's another artery which come into play here and come from the superficial temporal artery. So that artery will be called the transverse fascial artery. So when you come closer, you see that the name of the artery will be the transverse fascial artery. So we have this other artery, the transverse fascial artery, which is going to supply again and give to the eye, to the face. Now again, the superficial temporal artery is going to give again another anterior branch. So this anterior branch is a zygomatico orbital artery. So it's also going an anterior branch to the face. Again, another artery which is going to the anterior branch to the face is going to be the ophthalmic artery. The ophthalmic artery is going to give this branch here, which is supraorbital artery, and this branch here, which is supratrochlear artery. So you can see, find the name. So this one here is a supraorbital artery. This one here is a supraorbital artery, and this one here is a the supratrochlear artery. Now you need to know that the fascial artery, if there is a lesion on the ophthalmic artery, the fascial artery also anastomose with the ophthalmic artery via this supratrochlear and the supraorbital arteries. So it's going to give an angular artery here. So this artery here, so when you come closer, you visualize this artery here. This artery is called the angular artery. This artery is the anastomotic portion which enters. So when you visualize much more inside, you have this artery here. This artery here is the ophthalmic artery. You have the ophthalmic artery which gives this one. So at this portion, it's going to anastomose with the ophthalmic artery to give, if there is any lesion on the ophthalmic artery, such that the eye should still be supplied with blood vessels. So these are the main arteries involved in the external portion of the head. So occipital artery supply posteriorly to the scalp, the superficial temporal supply here, and we have all this. So now these are the main arteries which are involved. Now let's visualize now the venous drainage, superficial venous drainage. You know that the superficial venous drainage first comes from this portion. So we have here. So you must visualize first. Superficial drainage should end at the level of the brachiocephalic. We end at the level of the superior vena cava here. But here will be, this is the right brachiocephalic trunk, and this is the left brachiocephalic. This is the right brachiocephalic vein, and this is the left brachiocephalic vein. So it's going to end at this portion. Now here is going to be the external. This one here is the external carotid vein. This one here. This is the external jugular vein, and this one is the internal jugular vein. These are the two main veins which are involved with the draining in the head, external internal jugular vein. So now let's continue and increase the venous drainage. We see that the external jugular vein is going to receive from different portions. We have this portion here which corresponds with the fascial artery. It's going to be called, so when we can increase very well, so this portion here is a fascial vein. It corresponds with the fascial artery here, and it's going to be called the fascial vein. At this portion here is going to be called the common fascial vein. So the common fascial vein comes when it binds with this portion here, which is when it binds with this portion, anterior division of the retromandibular vein. So we have this retromandibular vein. The retromandibular vein is up here. So this vein here, as such here, is the retromandibular vein. So you have the retromandibular vein here. Now the retromandibular vein gives an anterior portion to the internal jugular vein, and that anterior portion is going to bind with the fascial vein to form this common fascial vein. Now you have, when the common fascial vein is going to bind with the internal jugular vein, which comes from the skull, from the cranial fossa, and is going to continue as the internal jugular vein. internal jugular vein. Now the posterior portion of the retromandibular vein is going to bind with the external occipital. This is a posterior division of retromandibular vein. Is going to bind with the external jugular vein. The external jugular vein take its origin from this portion here. So we have this artery, this vein here, the posterior auricular, which corresponds to the posterior auricular artery, and takes also from the occipital vein here. So it also corresponds with the occipital vein. So it takes from here, it also takes from this portion here. So all these are, and the deep cervical vein, all these are the origins of the occipital, of the external occipital, external jugular vein. So these they are going to come and form the external jugular vein. Now the external jugular vein and the internal jugular vein are not going to bind. So the external jugular vein will continue downward and is going to bind at the level of the subclavian vein here. So this is subclavian vein here. The external jugular vein is going to bind at the level of subclavian vein here, and the internal jugular vein is also going to bind at the level of the subclavian vein, but they are not going to bind with each other. Now the external jugular vein first is going to have different components. At this portion is going to bind with this portion, the suprascapular vein, and at this portion also going to bind with another vein called the anterior jugular vein. The anterior jugular vein is found at this location here. So we have the external jugular vein, we have the internal jugular vein, and we have the anterior jugular vein here. So these are the anterior jugular vein that are going to bind here and going to give at this portion. We also have this vein here called the inferior thyroid vein. So you need to know that unlike in with the superior and inferior thyroid artery, which are seen in arteries, there are three veins which drain the thyroid gland. We have the superior, the inferior, and the middle thyroid vein. Here the inferior thyroid vein is going to come from this portion of the thyroid, of the subclavian vein. So all this is to show the different origins. So here is going to correspond with the supraorbital artery. So we have the supraorbital artery corresponding is going to be supraorbital vein, and here is going to be the supratrochlear vein. So this is the lymphatics. So upon addition we have some plexuses which are adding again, and other nerves, so that's not really necessary. Now the next one are going to be the lymphatics. You need to know that the lymphatics are going to stop at the level of this portion from the head. So you need to know that all the right side, the right arm and the right part of the head are going to drain into the right lymphatic vessel, while the left side of the body with this portion here. So the lymphatics, to visualize the lymphatic, you see that all the side here, the sides which are involved with this portion as such, are going to, from here to here, all these sides are going to be drained into the right lymphatic vein, while the rest, which is all through this the body, are going to be drained in the thoracic duct. Now for the head, to consider the head, the thoracic duct and the right lymphatic are going to enter the venous circulation. So they are going to bind at this portion here. So this is the right thoracic duct, the right lymphatic duct. The right lymphatic duct bind at this position of the subclavian vein, while the thoracic duct bind at this position. So these are the terminal ends of all the lymphatics of the body. Now let's come to find the different lymph nodes which are found in the head and neck. So we have these lymph nodes which are anterior. Anteriorly we have these lymph nodes. So when you want to study the lymphatics, you must study the lymph nodes. These lymph nodes here are called the nasolabial lymph nodes. These lymph nodes here. So these are called the nasolabial lymph nodes. They are the two nasolabial lymph nodes. Now the nasolabial lymph nodes are going to drain from all these regions which are close to the nasal part of the skull. We have again these other lymph nodes here. These other lymph nodes here are the mandibular lymph nodes, are going to drain the mandibular region. These other lymph nodes here are going to be the superficial parotid lymph nodes. They are going to drain at the ramus of the mandible and the parotid gland. So we have again this other one, these other lymph nodes here. They are called the pre-auricular, in front, because they are in front of the ear, pre-auricular lymph node, and here will be the post-auricular lymph node. So if you come closer, you have this one here, the post-auricular lymph node, and the mastoid lymph node. At this position here, you have the jugulo-digastric lymph node. Here you have the deep parotid lymph nodes. So these are the deep parotid lymph nodes. Now all this drainage of the head are going to enter the deep and superficial cervical lymph nodes. You need to know that they are deep and superficial cervical lymph nodes. So most of the superficial one are first going to pass through the superficial cervical lymph nodes. So they're going to pass through the superficial cervical lymph nodes, while these are the posterior lateral superficial cervical lymph nodes. So most of the superficial drainage of the head are going to enter into the superficial cervical lymph nodes. And now the superficial cervical lymph node is going to drain into the deep cervical lymph node, and this is going to drain into one of the components of the thoracic duct. Lastly, the deep one are all draining into the deep cervical lymph nodes, and then the deep cervical lymph node is also going to give to one of the components of the thoracic duct. Now, before we continue again on the lymphatic drainage, there's a question which needs to be asked. Another question is, why are lymphs formed? The lymph is formed due to the interstitial fluid of the body. You know that when the heart pumps blood, it passes through the arteries. As it passes through when the heart we say here that the heart pumps blood, is going to pass through the arteries. As it passes through the arteries are going to have a high pressure and are going to filtrate their fluids into the tissues of the body, and that's going to form tissue fluid. The remaining fluid which is going to be formed is going to be drained into the venous circulation. So all the fluid enters now into the fluid of the body are going to be forming the tissue fluid. Now you see that if the body does not find a mechanism to drain all those tissue fluid, at one point in time there are going to be no blood in circulation of the vessels, the blood vessels, and they are only going to be accumulated inside the tissue fluid, causing edema. So the lymphatic circulation is the portion which is used in draining the tissue fluid from the tissues now and placing back that blood into the venous drainage. So that's the function of lymphatic circulation. And the main functional element which is used in pumping mechanism of the lymphatic circulation is the muscle. So when people are highly doing muscular activities, or when doing your normal activities, you are pumping your lymphatic back to your blood circulation. So if you are always having a sedentary life, it's very riskful for you to have edema. You have accumulation of fluid in the tissues. So these are the superficial drainage of the body, the different drainage that you can see externally in the head. Now let's see the drainage internally in the head. So we first remove the venous one and we remove the lymphatics. A point to note is that there is no lymphatics of the brain. So let's cut now the head and visualize what is found inside. So we first start by cutting the occipital up, and then we cut the sphenoid bone up. So then we cut the other bone, the frontal bone. So we have cut all these different ones. So we stop cutting and then we visualize what is inside the cranial cavity. Now, what do we visualize inside the cranial cavity? First thing is that I will first start by reducing the number of vessels. Now we can visualize this in the cranial cavity. So you have these vessels which can be visualized in the cranial cavity. Now the thing to note is that this forms what we call the circle of release. At this portion we have the circle of release. Now the circle of release, what is the circle of release? The circle of release is a mechanism of circulation of the brain where there is permanent supply of blood in an anastomotic manner. So realize that the drainage, the arterial supply to the head, to the brain is going to be through a certain anastomotic supply, because the brain is a very delicate organ. If there is an ischemia at one portion of the arterial supply, you realize that the brain is not going to directly going to fade. So this high use of this anastomotic pattern such that the brain should not suffer very much of an ischemia. So now let's visualize it again very more. So realize that the internal carotid artery was starting from here, and the internal carotid artery was entering inside the skull via the internal the carotid canal. So it was entering, so it's going to enter the skull via the carotid canal. At this portion is going to, the inferior portion enters via the carotid canal here, and at the top portion is going to pass into the this portion is the foramen lacerum. Now in the foramen lacerum is going to give the first branch of internal carotid is going to be the ophthalmic artery, and that ophthalmic artery is going to come out and supply the eye, as here you see here. Now we continue again by visualizing the first branch. So the first branch of the internal carotid artery will be seen here as the ophthalmic artery. Now it continues again posteriorly, is going to give different branches. This lateral branch here is going to be the medial cerebral artery. It's going to give an anterior branch. This anterior branch here is going to be the anterior cerebral artery, and this posterior one is going to be the posterior communicating artery. The posterior cerebral artery does not come from the internal carotid artery, but it will come from the posterior artery, which is supplied by the vertebral artery here. So let's come again. So the vertebral arch are going to come at this portion. They are going to enter at this portion here in the jugular foramen. So if you visualize below, you see that the vertebral artery are going to enter the head through the vertebral arch, are not entering through the jugular foramen, they are instead entering through the foramen magnum, as you can see here. Entering through the foramen magnum, vertebral arteries. So they are going to pass through the transverse foraminals and then enter through the foramen magnum. Now we have this vertebral artery. The vertebral artery continues above here. They are going to give the first branch of the vertebral artery is going to be the inferior cerebellar arteries. So these are the inferior cerebellar arteries here. It's going to give anterior inferior cerebellar artery and also the posterior inferior cerebellar artery. So the first branch of the vertebral arteries. Now the vertebral artery are going to continue again and give the pontine arteries here. So they are cut at this portion. We have the pontine artery. So these are the pontine artery given, and it's going to bind. You see that they bind together to give this artery. This main artery is called the basilar artery, and this basilar artery are going to give the pontine artery. Now up here is going to produce now the other artery in the circle of release, and that artery is going to the posterior cerebral artery. This artery is coming from the other portion, which is the internal carotid artery. This is the posterior communicating, and this is the posterior. This is the posterior communicating, and this is the posterior cerebral artery. So posterior communicating, posterior cerebral artery goes like this. So this is a circle of release. Now the anterior cerebral artery, you have this. The anterior cerebral artery come as such, and they are going to supply the medial portion of the head and the top portion. We have this one. You see that it's going to go much more outward. we see that when we visualize this the middle cerebral artery, the middle cerebral arch is much more going outward. This is why the middle cerebral arch is going to have a very large supply on the outermost side of the brain. So it's going to, the one which is occupying the very large supply on outermost side of the brain is the middle cerebral artery. Now visualize it very well. We see that the anterior cerebral artery is going much more medial. So the one which has much more prominent supply on the medial portion of the brain is the anterior cerebral artery. And the posterior cerebral artery, we realize is going much more posterior. So the one which has and it is much more medial. So the one which has effect on the posterior medial part of the brain, the one which is supplying mostly on the posterior medial part of the brain, is the posterior cerebral artery. So these are the main arteries that are involved here. So if you add up, you see again that the posterior cerebral arch is going to supply all through here. The anterior cerebral arch the middle cerebral arch is supplying here at this position, and we have here at this position the middle cerebral arch is supplying all this position on the medial side. So the posterior is involved mainly with the cerebellum and with the medial portion. Medially is the cerebral hemisphere. On the laterally is the cerebral hemisphere with the middle cerebral artery, and medially is the cerebral hemisphere with the anterior cerebral artery. So you have all these portions. Now let's see the internal venous drainage. So we see at this position here we have the jugular vein, which are coming from the jugular foramen. So when we add up, we have this. Now we need to know that I'll first remove the number of arteries. I have to remove. Okay, so these are the different the different arteries which are involved. Now we have this first artery here, which is the superior sagittal sinus. So the sinuses which are involved here are the one which are involved here are the sinuses. Here is the superior sagittal sinus. Now after having a superior sagittal sinus, we are going to have these other main ones. We have the main ones involved here. We have this other one internally. This one is called the basal vein. This one here is called the basal vein. Here is going to be the superior cerebral veins. All these are the superior cerebral veins. So all these around here are the superior cerebral veins. So in order to reduce the number of space here, I'll hide the superior cerebral vein. I'll cut all the superior cerebral vein on the left and on the right side. So superior cerebral vein, I cut them. So we see the sagittal vein. I will remove again this vein here. I'll hide it so that it does not cover all our dissection. So this vein here is the occipital vein, and we have seen it on the outward view of the skull. So we hide it. Now the next veins, I'll remove again these veins. So it's very small. So come back again. Now this vein here is going to be called, when we enter much more, this vein here is going to be called the superficial middle cerebral vein. So it accompanies the middle cerebral vein. So we have the accompany the middle cerebral artery. This is the superficial middle cerebral vein here. Now the superior sagittal sinus, here we said that it is the basal vein here, the basal vein, the left basal and right basal vein. At this portion we are going to have the transverse sinus. These are the transverse sinus here. So the different transverse sinus, and here these veins here are going to be the petrous vein because they are close to the petrous bone. So we have the petrous vein here. So we have the superior petrous vein. This is the superior petrous vein, and this other one here is going to be the inferior cerebral vein. This is the inferior cerebral vein. This is superior petrous vein, and all of them are going to bind to the transverse. The superior and inferior petrous vein are going to bind to this other one here. This vein here is going to be called the sigmoid sinus. The sigmoid sinus comes from we we first have the transverse, the superior sagittal sinus, which come as such. Then the superior sagittal sinus splits into two. You have it, if you visualize very well, the superior sagittal sinus splits into this portion, which is called the transverse sinus, and this portion, which is going to receive from this portion the occipital sinus. You have the occipital sinus here. The superior sagittal sinus also going to receive from this portion the straight sinus. Here above here we have the inferior sagittal sinus. So here above the superior sagittal sinus, we are below the superior sagittal sinus, we have the inferior sagittal sinus. Here we have the straight sinus, which comes. The both of the superior sagittal sinus and inferior sagittal sinus bind. They are going to divide mainly into form the transverse sinuses, and they are going to take also the occipital sinus. The transverse sinus and the two transverse sinus are going to come laterally, and they are going to take circulation from the inferior. They are going to take circulation from the inferior anastomotic. This is the inferior anastomotic vein. So we have also this one, the inferior cerebral vein. We have the superior and the inferior. We have the superior and inferior petrosal vein. So it's going to take superior and inferior petrosal vein. It's going to take from the inferior cerebral vein, and it's going to take from anastomotic vein. All these are going to add up to give the sagittal sinus. So now we are going to have at this portion the sagittal sinus. So the sagittal sinus is going to give at the inferior portion now the superior bulb of internal jugular vein. So let's see very well. So let's remove this bone. We hide this bone to visualize. I'll fade this one. So we have this. So when it comes down, you have this other bone here. You have this. So let's hide. So we have this bulb here. So we have the superior bulb of the internal jugular vein. Now down here, you are going to have the internal jugular vein as it comes out of the jugular foramen. So this is the superior bulb. The internal jugular vein comes from the this vein here, the sigmoid sinus. So now we have the internal jugular vein, and all of them are coming from this circulation. It starts with the superior sagittal sinus and inferior sagittal sinus. The superior and inferior sagittal sinus are coming medially. Laterally, you are going to have the petrosal vein with the other vein, the inferior cerebral veins here. The medial cerebral veins too are going to enter here, and the anastomotic vein are taken from the medial cerebral vein here laterally. All of them are going to bind to the transverse sinus, which is the division of the sigmoid and the inferior, which is the division of the superior and inferior sagittal sinus. A lot of them are going to bind to transverse sinus to now form the sigmoid sinus, and the sigmoid sinus is going to form the bulb of the internal jugular vein, and that bulb is going to descend down the jugular foramen and form the jugular vein, and going to continue with the circulation outward, as we have already seen. Here is going to be this vein here is going to be the common fascial vein, and we have already seen that it's going to receive from the anterior division of the retromandibular, and this one the fascial vein to bind here. So all of these are there. And lastly, we also have this vein here, which is the superior thyroid vein, and this other vein down here is going to be the medial thyroid vein, and the last one, which is the inferior thyroid vein, is entering directly into the subclavian vein. So this is the venous drainage of the head. So now we need to know again that there exists no lymphatic or very little lymphatic in the head. So when we come in the cranial fossa, we realize that there is no lymphatics. So the lymphatics which is inside the head is instead due to the cerebrospinal fluid. So there is no lymphatic in the head, and the reason why there is no lymphatic in the head is because when there is production of cerebrospinal fluid, the cerebrospinal fluid re-enters the blood circulation. When there is production of cerebrospinal fluid by the choroid plexus, the cerebrospinal fluid re-enters the venous circulation via the arachnoid granulations. So there is no need again for the use of lymphatic drainage in the head. So from here we say thanks for your kind attention, and please don't forget to like and subscribe for science videos. Thank you.